What does it take to stand up against an entire system? Not just a single bad law, but an entire economy, a culture, a way of life that the rest of the world considers normal. What does it take to be the one to say, this is fundamentally wrong, and it has to stop, no matter the cost? This isn't a theoretical question. This is the story of one of the most radical and world-changing social movements in human history. It's the story of abolitionism. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this incredible movement. This wasn't just a polite debate. It was a moral earthquake that shook empires, sparked a civil war, and forever changed our understanding of what it means to be free. First, let's set the stage. To understand how revolutionary abolitionism was, we have to understand the world it was born into. For thousands of years, in almost every corner of the globe, slavery was normal. It was a fact of life, an accepted part of society. In the 17th and 18th centuries, it wasn't just a part of society, it was the engine of the global economy. The transatlantic slave trade fueled the production of sugar, tobacco, and cotton, creating immense wealth for nations across Europe and the Americas. Slavery wasn't a crack in the foundation. For many powerful nations, it was the foundation. To be against it wasn't just to be a dissenter, it was to be against the entire world order. So, where did this spark of abolitionism begin? It started as a whisper, a question of conscience, often rooted in faith. Groups like the Quakers were among the first to systematically condemn slavery. They looked at their religious texts about the equality of all souls before God and asked a simple, dangerous question: if this is true, how can we possibly own another human being? This moral questioning grew, fueled by the thinkers of the Enlightenment who wrote about liberty, reason, and the rights of man. The very ideas that sparked the American and French revolutions created a massive contradiction. How could a nation declare that all men are created equal while holding millions in chains? This hypocrisy was the fertile ground in which the abolitionist movement took root. But an idea, no matter how powerful, is useless if it isn't shared. The abolitionists were masters of communication. They knew they had to change not just laws, but hearts and minds. Their most powerful weapon was the personal story. Formerly enslaved people like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Jacobs wrote breathtaking autobiographies. They weren't just writing books, they were seizing control of their own narrative. Their words transformed the abstract idea of slavery into the brutal, lived reality of a human being. They turned statistics into faces, and suffering into a story that could not be ignored. Next, they harnessed the power of the press. Abolitionist newspapers, like William Lloyd Garrison's radical paper The Liberator, were the social media of their day. They printed first-hand accounts of slavery, fiery editorials, and calls to action. They spread the message to thousands, creating a network of activists who were informed, outraged, and ready to fight. And fight they did, in many different ways. They organized massive petition campaigns, flooding Congress with signatures. They held rallies and gave passionate speeches. They organized economic boycotts, urging people to refuse to buy goods like sugar and cotton produced by enslaved labor. And, in the most dangerous form of activism, they created the Underground Railroad, a secret network of safe houses and brave guides who helped thousands of people escape from bondage to freedom. But let's be clear, the abolitionist movement was not one big, happy family. They were deeply divided on how to achieve their goal. This is where the story gets really interesting. On one side, you had people like William Lloyd Garrison, who were considered extreme radicals. They demanded immediate, unconditional emancipation for all enslaved people, with no compensation for the enslavers. They saw slavery not as a political problem to be managed, but as a moral sin to be cleansed. On the other side were more moderate voices who argued for a gradual approach. They worried that immediate abolition would collapse the economy and lead to chaos. They proposed slowly phasing out slavery over time. And then there was the most explosive question of all: should violence be used to achieve freedom? Most abolitionists were pacifists. But men like John Brown believed that slavery was a state of war, and that violence was the only language the system would understand. His raid on Harper's Ferry was a desperate, bloody act that terrified the South and pushed the nation ever closer to civil war. So, what is the legacy of this fractured, passionate, and powerful movement? Abolitionism did more than just end the legal institution of slavery. It fundamentally reshaped our world. The tactics these activists pioneered, the grassroots organizing, the media campaigns, the boycotts, the use of personal testimony to build empathy, became the blueprint for almost every social justice movement that followed, from women's suffrage to the civil rights movement and beyond. The story of abolitionism is a testament to moral courage. It proves that systems that seem permanent, profitable, and too big to fail can be challenged and dismantled by the conviction of ordinary people. It is a reminder that the most powerful force in history is not an army or an economy, but a truly radical idea whose time has come.